So it's Thursday morning at 9 o'clock, and after the unfortunate news that the Air France flight was canceled, we've scrambled and made other arrangements on KLM through Amsterdam. So we'll be leaving a tad earlier than forecasted. Well, after a fair amount of rain, the little cactus garden has sprung up majestically with not only approved plants but unapproved plants. So she goes upstairs and gets, she runs into two full big ass suitcases of Italian goodness coming your way. So, assuming this flight doesn't cancel. So.
Hi, good morning.
Hi.
Can we check it out?
Yes.
Thanks, John. I got it. You're fired as a bellman. That's all I can say.
I'm never a bellman. I probably would have to let the get on the road.
You are fired as a bellman.
SFO or open? You want SFO or open?
Yeah, I was SFO. I suppose I should check the maps and see if there's any traffic, but usually at this time of day it's pretty good. This morning at 3 it was great.
No traffic?
Now there was traffic, but not bad.
There's not a foggy on the way for
A what?
fog.
There was out in the country a little bit. Out by where we live it was, it wasn't bad, but so we just dropped John off at the bank and head up the 101 to SFO. And traffic looks clear at this point, so it's all good.
KSFO traffic sponsored by Compassion International back at the Bay Bridge. The metering lights are still on. You're backed up just into the maze. Westbound 80 sluggish from University. 580 west of 24. Northbound 880 slows from the Diamond Lane split. Some heavy traffic in Castro Valley as you make your way off of 238 or onto 238 North.
5819. That's grab GRAB 295810. Do it now. Technology more effectively. He's a public speaker, sitting in for Rush Limbaugh today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Todd Herman.
Absolute honor. I would say privilege, but it's not. It's an honor. It is a privilege as well to fill in. It's wrong. For instance, and this is going to cause a great bit of concern every time I mention this, people's forms of goo. If you try to build a skyscraper or an airplane without a measuring device, you are going to die. You'll die.
By the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council. Find out everything you need to know about your favorite radio station on the Talk Radio 560 KS.
Positive influence even within the Democrat Party.
Relevance. Now,
this is going to get fascinating because now Tulsi Gabbard is
suing
who has
her.
been called a Russian asset. Tulsi's doing something about this. This is a podcast. It's called Campaign HQ with David Fluke. He's a freaky.
In the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third-party candidate. She's a favorite of the Russians. They have a bunch of sites and bots and other ways of supporting her so far. And that's assuming Jill Stein will give it up, which she might not, because she's also a Russian asset. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. Totally.
So that's Hillary months ago making this statement, and her team confirmed, it was about Tulsi Gabbard. Is now the time to act with your lawsuit.
I have dedicated my entire adult life to serving our country and
I don't want that to happen closing up. I'm not joking about that. This is the state of the Democratic Party. It's incredible. And
The service can't be trusted, and the process can't be trusted. I live in New Hampshire.
by one of the big unions. And we took some of the members to these golf courses. And we took hidden cameras. And we had the guys go up and present their union cards and asked if they could golf. And they learned to their amazement that no, they were not allowed to golf there. Those were only for the union executives. Right? So the same thing applies here to this process of superdelegates. You need to be really, really smart to start to dig into that letter. Okay, because you'll have folks come by your house.
The hell?
Have the Limbaugh letter sitting out. And like, get a collection of them at rushlimbaugh.com. Set them on your beautiful coffee table. Have them there as at least points of conversation. You will find that when people pick up the Limbaugh letter and they experience Rush in writing, they're experiencing a guy obviously with a huge intellect, a beautiful command of the language, but also interesting approaches to interviews. They'll be embarrassed when they realize what's happening.
Says it was Ukraine that interfered in the election to help Hillary Clinton and hurt Donald Trump. One aspect of this conspiracy theory to prevent the FBI from examining it. Here's what President Trump said about this conspiracy theory during the July 25 call. Quote, I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server. They say Ukraine has it.
After having a little visit to the water closet, we're ready to go. Space L46, 5th floor. And away we go. Keys, phone, passport, wallet. Check. Roger. We're looking for counter 7 and 8. Our KLM is right over there, where it usually is. In online already, and I just need to check a bag.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
And when you're ready, we can place the bag on the
Okay.
scale. No rush.
Just need to move something around in here for a minute.
So the lunch, I think, do you have your priority pass? Is what we call priority pass.
Okay,
Usually,
so
if it's lunch, happens to accept the priority pass.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
passenger Sohawa Louis. Passenger Sohawa Louis. If you need, please proceed to the key for a wallet message. Thank you.
Passenger needing assistance, please line up on the right side of the podium. Have your passport out the way. On behalf of Air France, KLM, and Vertical Sky Team, we wish you a pleasant flight.
And the tunnels for the minutes to paging the following passenger. Passenger Matthew Wheeler. Passenger Matthew Wheeler. Passenger Rick Samuel. Passenger
Thank you.
Enjoy your flight.
Passenger Ruby.
Okay, off to 18K. Great. You doing that?
Good afternoon. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Hello.
Ladies and gentlemen, the aircraft has been refueled. Please keep your seatbelt open and remember smoking is strictly prohibited. Dank u wel.
Another ride on our Dreamliner.
The schedule has been loaded. Hopefully that will finish soon. And then we leave, of course, north on the departure of the Bay Area. Flight time is about 9 hours and 30 minutes. If you're interested in it, you can follow it on the Solva flight tracking system on the video screens. The flight is operated by 3 pilots and chief one of us working. Flight deck is occupied by the Midland flight crew at all times. Also, a request of the Department of Homeland Security. It's not allowed to come.
You have selected airplane route. Feel free to turn on Bluetooth.
er staat wel een gate aan.
Er staat wel een gate?
Als ik hier doorheen kijk, zie ik een gate. Nee, er staat niemand.
Ja, als ik dit nog even een beetje blijven. Wat anders.
So it's about 9:45 here in Amsterdam on Friday morning. Mind your step.
For security reasons, keep a close watch on your personal belongings.
So after a couple-hour nap at the lounge, which was pretty good, we're outside here, and so I'd say about 35 or 40 degrees. Not too windy. Being visited by a bird there. Really get it. There he goes. Goodbye.
Are you a member of our frequent flyer program?
Yes.
Do you have gold, diamond, or platinum elite?
Yes.
Good afternoon, sir. If you Skype
Thank you.
Yes, I have a
That would be a no.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to invite only Skywire passengers to board the aircraft now. Dames en heren,
Six apples. Hi.
Welkom aan boord. 1603.
Gaat het open? Voor je vliegtuig? Oké. Klopt.
6A.
Okay. That's lucky.
A very good afternoon from the flight deck. Captain, my name is Jesper Goot. Also on behalf of the rest of the crew at KLM, I'd like to welcome you on board of this Boeing 737-800 destination Rome. So now our scheduled departure time, we're fully ready. We're about to start the engines, then we started with the flight to Israel. Flight time approximately 2 hours and just before the approach over there. And we'll come back to you with late weather information as well as some more actual arrival time. For now, I'd like to wish you all a very pleasant stay on board and I hope you can enjoy your service today.
Eva Hager, I'm your purser on this flight to Rome today. I would like to extend a special welcome to our Flying Blue and Sky Team members. In a minute, we will perform the demonstration about the flight safety procedures on board of this aircraft. Of course, we would like to ask for your attention for this, please.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Sue.
Pretty.
Welcome to Rome, Fiumicino. Uscita, transiti, connections. Looks like baggage. Bagno would be pleasant though for a moment. There it is. Oh, it's pleasant out here. Okay, which way is the train? That way. Side. Come on. Un mondo.
Non è valido per il treno non stop Leonardo Express da Roma Termini a Fiumicino Aeroporto e viceversa. Collect your ticket.
Great.
Attenzione, ricorda.
Precies zo klopt, zag je?
Linea A e linea B. We will now arrive in Roma Termini. It is possible to change the station for underground, lines A and B.
I viaggiatori troveranno il treno regionale
21993
con le ferro significato
with scheduled departure at 17:49 minutes at platform 20, 8526 to
Bolzano.
with scheduled departure at 17:50 minutes 96:50.
Roma Termini. These are new. It's my welcoming committee. All right.
You want to walk down there?
Okay.
You want to?
Sure.
Okay, might as well be here. But that is a short way right there. Our hotel right that direction. Oh, I thought you want to walk. Oh, that's
Either way, this is the mall out here, right? With the big tall ceiling. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Come out that way, okay? You can walk that way and come back this way.
Can we go out that way?
No, why don't you go that way and come this way? You take the hotel right now.
I know. Can't we go this way? I do.
Oh my. So you can come back. Snap, 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 snap.
Yes.
This one is all balcony. And like, you can like, I get Anyway, at least they give us like that's exactly how I did it this morning. Without well, this now we did a little shortcut, but earlier I went up to that. But they said that you need to check it out when they need your passport. That boy right there. Oh, you didn't see it. You were busy. Is that one of the rooms that you stayed before? Very what was that in Milan or something like that? Remember the one last year?
Florence.
Was that the Milan or whatever the one in I couldn't turn that light on. I don't know why. I turned it off earlier. I found them for playing happy hour. They have all the chip, the other side, is that free? And right here, on the left. On the left right there. Very good.
See, it's like got ice crystals on it. Four fountains. What?
Because I'm saying, you know, I know sometimes you throw a tantrum, you to be really loud and dramatic. Like this now, I can do it. When is the car moving?
What?
Car moving.
And the Spanish Steps. I'm gonna walk up there. Piazza di Spagna. That's what you get. So this was Friday night dinner with pizza and spaghetti carbonara. And some amazing bread. It was really good.
Prossima fermata, nazionale Torino.
Mai visto.
A Madrid ancora di più.
Madrid non ci sono mai stato.
Ma devi pensare che questo è così perché non abbiamo intervenuto nella seconda guerra mondiale, quindi abbiamo come la Sicilia,
Di più, no?
no, come la Sicilia.
Tu stai più vicino al Marocco o più
Vicino al Marocco, proprio Andalusia.
Basilica Andrea della Valle.
I want to get some facade.
Anche due va bene uguale. Io solo della torta e cosa. Dopo allora quando vuole.
No, per me no, caffè.
Sì.
It's really sweet. That's Italian baked goods are really sweet.
All you eat sweet stuff anyway. It's not like nothing.
Campo di Fiore.
Remember this place.
All right, we're gonna go visit the monk over here.
Million people, the modern capital of a major economic power, and the center of government for 60 million Italians. Rome has no skyscrapers, no business district, and no obvious downtown. It's more a collection of urban villages like this. Romans jealously guard their laid-back lifestyle, and nowhere is it clearer than right here in Campo dei Fiori. This piazza and a thriving market developed. As popes modernized the city in Renaissance and Baroque times with urban renewal projects of their ancestors. For example, take a look at the East End of the Square. That's the Anthony
Very good.
Okay. This way. Right this way.
Then turn left. You'd be going the direction we're headed. So face the way Bruno is, go left, and head down a short street called Via dei Ballardi.
Nice.
Palazzo Farnese.
Very nice.
As you stroll down Via dei Ballardi, you'll notice a magnificent palazzo up ahead. Though just a block from Campo dei Fiori, the imposing palace and the square in front have a completely different feel.
It's huge what?
This cornice, that's the roof line that juts out.
Oh.
Michelangelo also added another crucial. These fountains are the first of a watery theme we'll see throughout our walk. Rome is famous for its fountains. They're part of the Roman heritage. In times past,
Exit the Campo, heading east down Via dei Ballardi.
tourists, students, and locals visiting from the suburbs. Rome, once a family town, is following urban demographics. Lots more single professionals. Families are small, only about a child. Italy's first ruler after unification in 1871. This wide, straight boulevard slices right through the tangled plains of the neighborhood. It's clear it was built after Italy's unification, when the city was modernized.
That's the same church.
Look left and right down.
Via di San Pantaleo.
Fun-loving, tolerant, and friendly. They're also a bit vulgar. The Roman accent sounds crude. Italy's edgiest comedians come from here. And much as the rest of Italy tries, they just can't say the phrase "damn your dead relatives" quite as effectively as the Romans.
A block down at the corner on your right, you'll find a beat-up old statue.
BC. The statue depicts a scene from the Trojan War. King Menelaus is cradling the body of his dying son for cremation. And to this day, you'll see Pasquino plastered with political posters, strike announcements, of this old part of town. You make your way through the maze of narrow streets, and suddenly you pop out and boom, there's a beautiful, spacious piazza. Spoiler alert, that's what's coming just ahead. We'll be entering a lively piazza, a place where all the layers of Rome are on display. Ancient, medieval, Baroque, and the Rome of today.
The street opens up at one end of an oval-shaped square called Piazza Navona.
There it is. Oh, nice. I have seen this.
But just revisit again.
Lined with palazzos and churches and thronged with happy visitors. This long, oblong piazza has been a center of Roman life since ancient times. You might be able to guess by its shape what it started as. It was a racetrack. It was part of the training grounds built here by Emperor Domitian. At the time, the popes were trying to put some major scandals behind them, and urban development like this was a peace offering to the public. Rome was energized and laying out.
Walking through the square toward the first of 3 fountains.
As you walk, on your left, the first building is the He's surrounded by a ring of tritons blowing on their conch shells. Back in 17th century Rome, Moors represented all that was exotic and mysterious.
The most famous fountain, though, is just ahead in the center of the square. Let's go there.
Rome has 13 ancient obelisks, more than any other city in the world. The ancient Romans loved obelisks. They were big and exotic, and by bringing them to Rome, it demonstrated how they'd been able to triumph over the great empire of Egypt. This particular one was erected around AD 80.
80?
AD 80, not far from here, at a temple to the cult of Isis. When Rome fell, this obelisk also fell. But later, Christian popes, Rome's new rulers, also liked the idea of proclaiming their power with these columns. So, starting in the 1580s, they re-erected them, now topped with Christian crosses.
Step right up to the Four Rivers Fountain.
Water of the world gushes everywhere. It's brought to mankind by 4 burly river gods who symbolize the 4 quarters of creation. Horses plunge through the rocks, and the water of life sprouts exotic plants and animals from faraway lands. The facade is massive. The actual church interior is quite small. Artists showing their work, fire eaters, local Casanovas, and outdoor cafes that are worth their inflated prices for the view alone.
Back here at the Four Rivers Fountain and turn to the next track.
No, thank you.
Peddlers and palm readers. Ahead of you, across the busy street, stands the stately Palazzo Madama. This fine Renaissance palazzo was named for Madame Margherita, who married.
Okay, she says go to the left. $12. Madame Plaza Palace.
The place is guarded by a special force called the Carabinieri. Like Americans have double laundry jokes, the Italians have double Carabinieri jokes. Hey Lisa, you know why the Carabinieri always work in pairs?
No. Why?
Because one can read and the other can write.
Well, hardy har har.
Carabinieri. I love the uniform, the white sash.
At the end, on your left, you'll pass the stately white facade of the Church of San Luigi dei Francesi. As the name Francesi implies, this is the French National Church in Rome. French motifs abound. At eye level, there's a statue of Charlemagne, the King of the Franks, and another of Saint Louis. Notice the columns under your feet. These basalt columns are the same kind of stone the ancient Romans used. It's quarried from volcanic mountains. The neighborhood we're walking through is 2,000 years old. But in ancient times, this area was on the out racetracks, like the Piazza Navona, and temples to the gods, like the Pantheon. As ancient Rome fell, this neighborhood became the new center of town. Medieval Romans abandoned the forum, which was constantly pillaged by barbarians. They settled here, in this naturally flat land, in the bend of the Tiber River, surrounded by columns supporting shaded walkways. The ancient Romans introduced the whole piazza culture, and as you can see, it thrives to this day. Notice how the obelisk in the middle is ancient. It originally decorated a sanctuary near here, dedicated to the Egyptian goddess Isis. Rome had no problem worshiping the gods of other cultures. And since much of Rome's grain came from Egypt, they were more than happy.
Non chiuderò nemmeno, secondo me.
He was inspired to start a fancy coffee shop back in Seattle. Today, Starbucks is making its way back to Italy.
When you're done with your little coffee break, continue past the coffee shop, heading up Via degli Urbani.
After a short walk, Via degli... Notice the stubby tower on the left end. Back in medieval times, this tower does today. But when a stronger central government arrived, the rulers decreed that all the nobles...
Left. You'll enter a big square dominated by a big and very old monument. Another Egyptian obelisk.
Parliament and its obelisk. This the obelisk is made of red granite and stands 70 feet tall, or well over 100 feet when you include the base. In Egypt, obelisks were connected with the sun god made hill. This was the mound of dirt that was dug up when Augustus was building his monument to the sun.
Those ancient Romans did everything on a supersized scale, including the huge column in the square coming up next.
Piazza Colonna. The square features a massive column. It has stood on this spot since the 2nd century AD. The column shaft is exactly 100 feet tall. Also Michelangelo's favorite. Get closer. You'll see that it's not made from a single piece of marble. It's 28 cylindrical blocks stacked atop each other like a stack of 10-ton checkers. The column is carved with a frieze that winds from the bottom all the way to the top. It tells the story of Emperor Marcus Aurelius, heroically battling the barbarians in around 170 AD. At the very bottom, find the scene that shows the crucial start of the campaign.
Piazza Colonna.
Stretched all the way across Italy to the Adriatic coast. In the Middle Ages, this street brought pilgrims to the Vatican. For 2,000 years, this was how all travelers from Northern Europe. Were built throughout Italy in the late 1800s. They reflect the energy of a newly united, proud nation. You'll pass by the biggest Italian bookstore chain, Feltrinelli's. By the way, Galleria Sordi is the new name for this old gallery. It was recently renamed to honor a beloved Italian movie actor known from his work in Fellini films.
Exit the gallery out the far right end. You know that Fellini film, La Dolce Vita, where they splash around in the Trevi Fountain? Was Alberto Sordi in that?
Well, Lisa, normally I'd have no clue whatsoever. But since this is an audio tour, I know everything. And he was not in that famous film. And don't get any ideas about you and me jumping in.
Ferry. You'll soon reach the roar of the water, lights, and people at the Trevi Fountain.
Center stage is the enormous figure known simply as the ocean. He symbolizes water in every form. The statue stands in his shell-shaped chariot surfing through his wet kingdom. Water fishes from 24 spouts. It tumbles around 30 different kinds of plants. Winged horses represent cresting waves of mountain air where locals came to get their water. It was dug more than street level to give the fountains back. You draw near, and then, bam, you're there. Enjoy the scene. Lucky Romeos clutch dates, while unlucky ones clutch beers. And then there's the coins. Romantics toss a coin over their shoulder into the fountain.
You love this
I don't take a lot of time.
Oh.
I do go in and I play time. I don't just like, drag me along. No.
Your first landmark is 3 minutes ahead. It's the busy cross street called Via del Tritone, where we'll see a ruined aqueduct. Rick, take us there.
The aqueduct ruins, Rome's water. As you walk, I'll tell you a little more about Rome's famous fountains. We've seen several so far. All are fed by fresh spring water carried into the city by aqueducts. Up ahead, we'll get a glimpse.
A very tiny glimpse.
Yes, but a glimpse nevertheless, at one of the original aqueducts. It's 2,000 years old. As you keep walking toward the big, busy Via del Tritone, consider that Romans have enjoyed some of Europe's best water since ancient times. Back then, water was considered an essential amenity.
Number 9 on the left.
You can look walk through a black iron fence to see the ancient aqueduct.
And there's the fence. Yeah, there it is.
Let's move on. It's a 5-minute walk from here to our next stop, but the route is easy. To start, continue another 50 meters or so down Via del Nazareno. At the T intersection, turn right on Via Sant'Andrea della Frate. From there, keep walking while Rick and I guide you.
Reception column. Walk north up Via Sant'Andrea della Frate. On the right at number 16 is the low-key national headquarters of Italy's Democratic Party.
Via Propaganda opens up into a spacious square dominated by a single column topped with a statue of Mary.
Circle for a walk, you may be getting a little hungry. As you may have noticed, the Italians are masters at the art of fine eating. Lingering over a multi-course meal at an outdoor table, watching a parade of passers-by while you sip wine with loved ones. It's one of Rome's great pleasures. Rome has a few signature dishes. There's spaghetti alla carbonara. Gnocchi alla romana is the little dumplings. In season, they enjoy fresh artichokes or carciofi. Saltimbocca is veal in a marinated sauce. And of course, there's always the traditional tripa alla romana. Tripe or intestines. It's as good as it sounds.
Yum!
And for dessert, why not do as the locals do? Grab a gelato, a cup, or a cola, and stroll the streets.
You soon reach the happy white noise of a sea of people out enjoying another of Rome's venerable gathering spots, the Spanish Steps.
Del Corso and the Galleria, framed between two Baroque church towers. At the foot of the steps is the aptly named Gine. Because the water pressure here is so low, the water can't shoot high in the air. So Bernini,
or his father,
yes, they had to design the fountain to be low.
Ai cũng bảo lạnh, phải là lạnh cống, lạnh chắc cũng chậm thôi, thành ra đi nước với lại nước không phải nó gió này. Để đi lên, đang đi lên nhất cái có một đoạn này đỡ một ngày.
You're a vulgar man.
Oh well. Is it all okay, huh?
If you just right, if you have a reservation, then it's the same. Choose certain entrance right if you have a ticket. Then it's a
So we appear to be entering Vatican City. Woohoo! So that's the line to get into the church. And guess what? It goes on for quite a ways.
Con sông đó ha, ở dưới con sông đó ha. Mỗi cái nước nó tấm lại mỗi cái nước nó là mình nắm nhau. Hình nhà hàng hay là quảng cáo nhà và đặt các phòng Việt Nam, còn mấy cái phim mà nước Liên Xô hay là Đức là New York rồi tí đó rồi hết nó giảm đứng dần dần. Cái khúc này chưa có đâu để đi tại bên nó không thấy sáu cái dòng sông mà bên nó có cái dọc đường đó, nó không thấy cái dọc đường đó không ở xích bên kia là nó mở mấy nếu bên kia là nó mở tiệm thùng nhà hàng dưới nó mấy cái đường đi đó mấy cái đường đi. took a photo outside.
You studied it, and last time you didn't take the picture at all?
Of course I did.
Really? And this is another set? This is another latest set, you mean?
It's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg up there.
Erano diversi, anche delle nostre stesse sorelle.
È stato così supremo ultimamente, scrive il presidente americano, aveva alcune cose sgradevoli da dire su Stati Uniti ed Europa, dovrebbe stare molto attento con le parole. Un avvertimento quello di Trump che suona ancora una volta come una minaccia.
Not every train this way.
Let's go down the stairs.
Hello. Ticket, please.
How do they know?
You don't mess around with the Chinese bitch. They know how to bitch.
Now they know.
Oh my god, the woman is such a bitch.
Good thing we got the tickets in advance.
How the enlightened Romans could conquer their barbarian neighbors, not just by brute military force. are bleacher seats that slant up from the arena floor. 50,000 fans looked down on the playing surface, shaped like an ellipse and lined up on an east-west axis. The arena is began.
That's a Messi.
The trumpets blare, the drums would pound, and the gladiators enter the arena.
The underground passageways with boards and sand. Look around and imagine the gladiator games.
The gladiator games. Then the star wandered on stage, dressed as, say, Hercules or Adonis. There he was attacked by wild animals or by gladiators in costume. And 9,000 animals were killed. That's roughly one death every 5 minutes. Coliseum employees squirted perfumes around the stadium to mask the stench of all that blood.
Wow, that's one intense sporting event.
Yeah, almost as bad as hockey.
It makes you wonder how such an advanced society could be so bloodthirsty.
I've got some theories.
I'm sure you do.
The Colosseum was the big time for any aspiring gladiator. Gladiators were usually from the lowest classes: slaves, criminals, prisoners of war, or the poor. They battled their way up the ranks, but probably not here in this particular stadium. Maybe, but probably not.
Eventually, our tour will end up on the upper level at the west end. If you're on street level, you'll
Seats with their names carved on them. The next level up was for those of noble birth. The level we're at was probably for ordinary free Roman citizens called plebeians.
place of the Colosseum and picture them in togas.
The Colosseum's surroundings. Along the southwest side of the Colosseum is the Arch of Constantine, which we'll talk about a bit later. Beyond the arch rises Palatine Hill, dotted with umbrella pines. The pedestrian roadway that leads west from the arch is the Via Sacra, or Sacred Way, once Rome's main street. It heads up an incline toward the arch today and up onto the Esquiline Hill. With the construction of this mammoth arena, Nero's statue became the Colosseum's one.
The ruins are all that's left of the once great Temple of Venus and Rome.
The entire hill. Along either side, to the left and right, you can still see some of the massive white columns, nearly 6 feet thick, that mark the perimeter of the temple complex. In its day, the temple was one of the most prominent in all Rome. The size of a football field and 100 feet tall, the Grand Temple sat on this raised platform for all Rome to see. This was the cella, or sacred chamber of the temple. Under the arched ceiling at the center of the temple once sat a monumental statue of Venus, the goddess of love. Worshippers, especially newlyweds, would climb the steps to the entrance and make a sacrifice to ask Venus to bring them good luck. You can still see part of the staircase that led from the Colosseum up the hill and into the temple. The temple was designed by the 2nd century Emperor Hadrian, an amateur architect who also built the Pantheon. Hadrian's design was critiqued by Rome's best-known architect, who complained that the huge statues would have been so cramped they'd bump their heads if they stood up. Hadrian, who never took criticism very well, had the architect killed. Were meant to go together. After the fall of Rome, a Christian church with a bell tower was built atop the ruins. These days, Roman newlyweds get married here to ensure themselves love and happiness for eternity.
Now turn your attention to the Arch of Constantine, the big white...
March of Constantine. If you are a Christian, were raised a Christian, or simply belong to a so-called Christian nation, ponder this arch. It marks one of the great turning points in history, the military coup that made Christianity mainstream. In the year 312, Emperor Constantine defeated his rival, Maxentius, in the crucial Battle of the Milvian Bridge. The night before, Constantine saw a vision of a cross in the sky. He attributed his victory to this vision. Constantine, whose mother and sister were Christians, became sole emperor and legalized Christianity. With this one battle, a once obscure Jewish sect with a handful of followers was now the state-sanctioned religion of the entire Western world. Think of it this way. In 300 AD, you could be killed for being a Christian. By 400 AD, you could be killed for not being a Christian. Church enrollment boomed. This newly restored arch is like an ancient museum. It's decorated entirely with recycled carvings originally made for other buildings. By covering it with exquisite carvings of high Roman art, works that glorified previous emperors, Constantine put himself in their league. 4th century Rome may have been in decline, but Constantine clung to its glorious past.
With the coming of Christianity, the Colosseum's glory days were slowly approaching the end.
And so is this tour. But there's still more of the Colosseum to see. You can check out the temporary exhibits. There's also a small permanent exhibit located on the upper level near the east end. If you haven't spent much time on the ground level yet, it offers still more spectacular views and close-ups of the arena's underground passageways.
Or start heading for the exit. It's downstairs, usually on the south side near the Vestal Virgin's box. Wherever you may roam,
you got me.
Keep exploring while you listen to one final track. Let Rick bring the story of the Colosseum right up to the present day.
Nó hoài mà nó không có thời gian lại đi biết ở trong
Willst du mal, Andrea?
Bithynia in Latin is funeral. On the opposite side, right over there, there used to be the Triumphalis door. We talked about the Triumphalis door with my Celtic gladiator over there. Remember? So the Triumphalis door used to be right over there. So now we are under the seats. Where are they? Totally gone. Back. You don't have the money, the currency, you know.
Yeah,
Können wir noch mal da hinten laufen und kommen eigentlich auf die Bühne dann?
Mama.
Shall we?
Did you take any panoramic view picture?
Of course. Shishi. Ni hao.
Valley known as the Forum. Of the various entrances to the Forum, this is the one nearest the Colosseum and the Colosseo metro stop. Rick?
From the Arch of Titus, look out over the rubble-littered valley of the Forum. Imagine Rome at its peak. This was the center of ancient Rome. The hill in the distance with the bell tower is Capitol Hill. Immediately to your left with all the trees is Palatine Hill. The valley in between is rectangular, running roughly east to west, from the Colosseum behind you up to Capitol Hill, far ahead. The rocky path at your feet is the Via Sacra, which runs through the trees, past the large brick Senate building, under another triumphal arch at the far end, and up Capitol Hill. Picture being here when a conquering general returned to Rome with crates of booty. The valley was full of gleaming white marble buildings topped with bronze roofs. The Via Sacra, Main Street of the Forum, would be lined with citizens, waving branches and carrying torches. The trumpets would sound as the parade began. First came porters carrying chests full of gold and jewels. Then, a parade of exotic animals from conquered lands. Elephants, giraffes, hippopotamuses, all for the crowd to ooh and awe at. Next came the prisoners in chains, with the captive king on a wheeled platform, so people could jeer and spit at him. Finally, the conquering hero himself would drive down in his four-horse chariot, with rose petals strewn in his path. The whole procession would run the length of the Forum and up the face of Capitol Hill to the Temple of Saturn. That's the 8 big columns midway up the hill. They'd place the booty in Rome's treasury. Then they'd continue up to the summit to the Temple of Jupiter. You can't see the Temple of Jupiter from here because only ruins of its foundation remain. Meeting the priests at the temple, they dedicate their victory to the King of the Gods. Conquest by conquest, Rome grew from a small band of tribespeople huddled in this valley to an empire stretching all across Europe. The wealth of that far-flung empire flowed inward to the city of Rome. This triumphal arch commemorated the Roman victory over the province of Judea, or Israel, in 70 AD. The Romans had a reputation as benevolent conquerors who tolerated the local customs. All they required was allegiance to the empire, shown by worshipping the emperor as a god. No problem for most conquered people, who already had half a dozen gods on their prayer list anyway. But the Jews of Israel believed in only one God, and it wasn't the emperor. Israel revolted. After a short but bitter war, the Romans defeated the rebels, took Jerusalem, sacked their temple, and brought home 50,000 Jewish slaves. They were forced to build this arch, which celebrates their defeat. Ancient Rome lasted 1,000 years.
Excuse me, Rick, but some vital directions here. After about 50 yards, a pathway veers off the Via Sacra. Turn right here and follow the path uphill. Keep walking while Rick gives a little more history. We'll see you at the 3 big arches.
Rome in a nutshell. The story of ancient Rome spans about 1,000 years, from 500 BC to 500 AD. In a nutshell, it rose for 500 years, peaked for 200 years, and declined for 300 years. The first half was the Republic, ruled by an aristocracy via their elected senators. The second half was the Empire, ruled by a no-nonsense dictator or emperor. Right from the start, war was the business of state. Rome expanded until eventually it controlled most of Western Europe and the entire Mediterranean Sea. The word Rome came to refer to the civilized world itself, and the Mediterranean was known as Mare Nostrum, our sea. About the time of Christ, the vast Roman Empire was too unwieldy to be ruled in the idealistic republic style. They needed an iron-fisted dictator backed by the military. Julius Caesar bridged the gap between republic and empire. This ambitious general and politician assumed dictatorial powers in about 50 BC, suspending the republic. Though he was assassinated, more on that later, his adopted son, Augustus, succeeded him. And soon, Caesar was not just a family name, but a title. Emperor Augustus ushered in the Pax Romana, or Roman peace, from about 1 AD to the year 200. At her peak, Rome controlled an empire that stretched even beyond Ural, from Scotland to Egypt, from Spain all the way to the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in modern-day Iraq.
Stand and admire the 3 huge arches of the...
Look at these immense arches. They used to blow me away. Then I learned they were only side niches. Look high above those nubs, and then imagine the main arches stretching high above entirely across this big vacant lot. Now, complete the Mammoth Hall of Justice in your mind. Those 3 arches were matched by 3 more on the other side, where only ruined pillars remain today. Basilica of Constantine. Look at these immense arches. They used to blow me away. Then I learned they were only side... The Via Sacra. Stroll through the trees down this main street of the ancient city. Imagine being an out-of-town visitor during Rome's heyday, maybe from Gaul. Modern France would be swarmed with tribunes, slaves, and courtesans. Chariots whizzed by. Wooden stalls lined the roads where merchants peddled their goods. Think of all the history around you. You may pass modern workers in roped-off archaeological zones digging down through the millennia. The Via Sacra was paved with large basalt stones. Think of it. Many of the very stones under your feet were actually walked on by Caesar Augustus 2,000 years ago. Sturdy roads like Via Sacra were part of an efficient transportation network, about 50,000 miles of paved roads in all. Originally, roads like these were covered over with concrete and smooth-fitting stones.
Oh, is it?
Roman businessmen traveled them on foot or in carts. The mail sped along in a kind of Pony Express system, and bureaucrats rode in chariots, allowing them to administer far-off lands.
On your right, you'll pass a building with a green door.
Similar look like
That green door is the original bronze door to the Temple of Romulus, a kind of Pony Express.
The green door.
That green door is the original bronze door to the Temple of Romulus, still swinging on its ancient hinges after 17 centuries. And these days, that ancient temple is sometimes used for
Huge columns form the entrance.
they call Rome the Eternal City.
Keep going down the Via Sacra. Up ahead on your right, you'll see 10 tall columns.
Huge columns.
These huge columns form the entrance to a former temple.
The Temple of Antoninus Pius and Faustina. This temple honors the 2nd century Emperor Antoninus Pius and his wife, Faustina. The 50-foot tall Corinthian columns with their ornate and leafy capitals must have been awe-inspiring to out-of-towners who grew up in thatched huts. Although the temple is now inhabited by a church, you can still see the basic layout. A staircase led to a shaded porch where you see the columns. From here, you entered the main building, now the church. Inside the temple stood a statue of a Roman god. Picture a Roman priest climbing these steps to make an offering to the god inside. For the superstitious Romans, religion was all about making peace with the gods to guarantee their blessings and good fortune. To appease the fickle gods, they paid priests to sacrifice an animal in their behalf or to interpret the will of the gods by studying the animal's internal organs. Romans had a god for every important event in their lives. Scholars estimate Romans had about 30,000 gods to keep happy. The goddess of childbirth, the god of babies' first steps, the goddess who made bread rise, and even Venus Cloacina, the sewer goddess. So when Emperor Antoninus' beloved wife died, he could declare her a goddess, build this temple in her honor, and no one blinked. Imagine these stately columns in Rome's heyday, with gilded capitals, supporting a triangular-shaped pediment decorated with brightly painted statues, and the whole building capped with a gleaming bronze roof. The stately gray rubble of today's Forum is like a faded black and white photograph of a 3D Technicolor era.
Now, with your back to the 10 tall columns.
Huge columns.
Huge columns. Walk away from the temple. The dirt path leads to 2 sites associated with Rome's Vestal Virgins.
Virgins?
As the path curves to the right, you'll see the remains of a small white circular temple. This is the Temple of Vesta. Approach closer to it, because this round temple is best viewed from its downhill side.
Vesta.
The Temple of Vesta. This is perhaps Rome's most sacred spot. Notice that the temple remains are curved. Originally, this temple was circular, like a glorified farmer's hut, the kind Rome's first families lived in. Rome considered itself one big family, and inside this temple, a fire burned, just as in a Roman home. Although we think of the Romans as decadent, in fact, they prided themselves on their family values. People venerated their parents, grandparents, and ancestors, even keeping small statues of them in sacred shrines in their homes. This temple represented those family values on a large scale. Its fire symbolized the hearth of the extended family that was Rome. In those days, you never wanted your fire to go out. People believed as long as the sacred flame burned, Rome would stand. The flame was tended by 6 priestesses known as Vestal Virgins.
Those Vestal Virgins lived nearby. Circle around the back of the Temple of Vesta. In other words, backtrack a few steps up the path.
These 6 virgins were chosen from noble families before they reached the age of 10. They served a 30-year term, tending the flame in the temple. The Vestals were honored and revered by the Romans. They had the power to pardon condemned criminals. They even had their own box at the Colosseum, opposite the emperor.
And their residence wasn't shabby either. As you circle around behind the Temple of Vesta, you'll find a place to view the House of the Vestal Virgins. Virtually all that remains today is the building's rectangular courtyard with 2 rectangular pools.
Vestal Virgins.
The House of the Vestal Virgins. The Vestal Virgins lived in a 2-story building that stood here. It surrounded a long central courtyard. You can see 2 pools that decorated it at one end. The row of statues honored illustrious Vestal Virgins. Their sacred duty was to be ritual homemakers, tending the temple home of the goddess Vesta. They brought water from a sacred spring, cooked sacred food, and I imagine even polished the ritual silverware. And most importantly, they made sure the hearth fire never ever went out. As the name implies, a Vestal took a vow of chastity. If she served her term faithfully, abstaining for 30 years, she was given a huge dowry and allowed to marry. But if they found any virgin who, well, wasn't, she was strapped to a funeral cart, paraded through the streets of the Forum, taken to a crypt, given a loaf of bread and a lamp, and buried alive.
Oh.
Many women suffered this latter fate. Notice the layout of this home for priestesses. An open-air courtyard surrounded by a covered walkway and living quarters. This place was the model, both architecturally and sexually, for medieval convents and monasteries in the Christian era.
Standing here at the House of the Vestal Virgins, you have a nice view of Palatine Hill rising up behind it. Some of the ruins on the flank of that hill are from the former palace of the Emperor Caligula.
Wow.
Caligula was not a nice person. He tortured enemies, stole senators' wives, and even parked his chariot in handicap spaces. But Rome's luxury-loving, egomaniac emperors only added to the glory of the Forum, with each one trying to make his mark on history.
Back once again to the Temple of Vesta.
We're headed now to the very heart of the Roman Forum. But first, as you pass the Temple of Vesta, look to the left where you'll see 3 tall columns with connecting them. This marks the Temple of Castor and Pollux, one of the city's oldest. These 3 columns have become the most photographed site in the Forum. The Temple of Castor and Pollux, one of the city's oldest. These 3 columns have become the most photographed site in the Forum.
The path spills into an open area that stretches before you. This was the center of the ancient Forum.
The Forum's main square. The word Forum referred to this entire valley and its main square. The main square was this flat patch of land about the size of a football field stretching to the base of Capitol Hill. It was the original piazza, an open area accommodating the gregarious and social nature of ancient Romans. Surrounding the square were temples, law courts, government buildings, and triumphal arches. Rome was born right here. According to legend, twin brothers Romulus and Remus were orphaned in infancy and raised by a she-wolf on top of the Palatine. Growing up, they found it hard to get dates. So, they and their cohorts attacked the nearby Sabine tribe and kidnapped their women. Or so went the legend. Closer to fact, this marshy valley became the meeting place and then the trading center for the scattered tribes on the surrounding hillsides. Throughout Rome's long history, the square was the busiest, most crowded, and often seediest section of town. Besides senators, politicians, and money changers, there were even sleazier types. Souvenir hawkers, pickpockets, fortune tellers, gamblers, slave traders, drunks, hookers, lawyers, and tour guides. The Forum is now rubble, but imagine it in its prime. gleaming white marble buildings with 40-foot-high columns and shiny bronze roofs, rows of statues painted in realistic colors, processional chariots rattling down the Via Sacra. Mentally replace tourists in t-shirts with tribunes in togas. Imagine the buildings towering and the people buzzing around you while an orator gives a rabble-rousing speech from the foot of Capitol Hill. If things still look just like a pile of rocks, at least tell yourself, but Julius Caesar once leaned against these same rocks.
And speaking of Julius Caesar, let's see his temple. At the near end of the main square, the end closest to the Colosseum, find the foundations of a temple now sheltered by a modern tin roof.
The Temple of Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar's body was burned on this spot under the metal roof after his assassination in 44 BC. Caesar, born in the year 100 BC, changed Rome and the Forum dramatically. Popular with the people because of his military victories and charisma, he gained control of the government, suspended the Roman constitution, and ruled like a king or dictator. In the Forum, he cleared out many of the wooden market stalls and replaced them with grand marble buildings. Caesar's house was located behind the temple, near that clump of trees. In fact, Caesar walked right by here on the day he was assassinated, the place where the street corner preacher called out to him, "Beware the Ides of March." Though he was popular with the masses, not everyone liked Caesar's politics. During a Senate meeting, he was ambushed by a conspiracy of senators, including his adopted son, Brutus. One by one, they stepped up to take turns stabbing him. Caesar died gasping his final astonished words to Brutus, "Et tu, Brute." He died. The funeral was held here, facing the main square. The citizens gathered and speeches were made. Mark Antony stood up to say, in Shakespeare's words, "Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him." When Caesar's body was burned, the citizens who still loved him threw anything at hand on the fire. The fire grew huge, so huge it actually required the fire department to come and put it out. Later, Emperor Augustus dedicated this temple in his name, making Caesar the first Roman to become a god. Peek in behind the wall under the tin roof. In the small curved area, there's a mound of dirt that usually has fresh flowers, given to remember the man who, more than any other, personified the greatness of Rome.
Forum's west end, the end farthest from the Colosseum, heading towards the big triumphal arch. Along the way, listen as Rick talks about how the empire changed Rome.
Roman society. As you walk alongside the open space of the Forum's main square, consider how the piazza is still a standard part of any Italian town. The town square, or piazza, has reflected and accommodated the outgoing nature of the Italian people since Roman times. Although the Forum housed Rome's grandest temples and government buildings, it was also a bustling marketplace. Fast food stands were everywhere, since Romans rarely cooked for themselves in their cramped apartments. The Forum was a melting pot of people from the far-flung Roman world. Foreigners, citizens, slaves, nobles, and businessmen all rubbed shoulders here in the peace and prosperity that came with Roman rule. As the orator Cicero said, the welfare of the people is the ultimate law. But Rome was changing as its empire expanded. Rulers found it difficult to maintain a 10,000-mile frontier as barbarians pecked away at the borders, hoping for their slice of Rome's pie. Taxation rose to oppressive levels, and inflation skyrocketed. Politically, the corrupt government was becoming more like a banana republic than a great empire. Rome's slow-motion fall inspired emperors to try drastic solutions. In the 3rd century, Diocletian split the huge empire into 2 administrative halves. His successor, Constantine, who ruled in the early 300s, tried to unify the society by embracing the new religion of Christianity. But despite these efforts, Rome had begun its long decline. As you approach the far end of the square, you'll pass by several trees bearing fruits that were sacred to ancient Romans. Olives provided food and oil for light and preservatives. Figs were a tasty food staple. And grapes? Well, the Romans loved their wine. Wine and olive oil were profitable export products for Roman businessmen. The Temple of Saturn and the Column of Focus, Rome's end. To the Forum's oldest temple. It dated from about 500 BC. Inside, there was once a humble, very old wooden statue of the god Saturn. The statue's claim to fame was its pedestal, which held the gold bars, coins, and jewels of Rome's state treasury, the booty collected by conquering generals.
I need to complete
The Curia, or Senate House. The Curia was the oldest and most important political building in the Forum. Since the birth of the Republic, this was the site of Rome's official center of government. 300 senators elected by the citizens of Rome donned their togas, tucked their scrolls under their arms, laws of the land. They sat with their backs to the walls, surrounding the big hall on 3 sides in bleachers stacked 3 tiers high. At the far end sat the Senate President, or later, the Emperor, on his podium. The marble floor you see is from ancient times. Listen to the echoes in this vast room. The acoustics are great, and imagine the stirring speeches and passionate debates that happened right here. Rome prided itself on being a republic. Early in the city's history, its people threw out the king and established rule by elected representatives. Each Roman citizen was free to speak his mind and have a say in public policy. Even when emperors became the supreme authority, the Senate was a power to be reckoned with. The Curia building dates from 283 AD. It's so well preserved because it was used as a church since early Christian times. In the 1930s, it was restored and opened to the public as a historic site. On display 100 AD. It was a tribute to an emperor, probably Hadrian or Trajan. Notice also the 2 carved relief panels. The panel on the left shows people with big stone tablets standing in line to burn their dead records following a government amnesty. The other relief shows the distribution of grain, Rome's welfare system, some buildings in the background, and the latest fashion in togas.
Go back down the Senate steps.
By the way, although people say Julius Caesar was assassinated on the steps in the Senate, it wasn't actually here. The Senate was temporarily meeting across town.
To find our next site, face the Triumphal Arch. To the left of that is a 10-foot high wall at the base of the Capitol Hill marked Rostrum.
The Rostrum. Nowhere was Roman freedom more apparent than at this speaker's corner. The Rostrum was a raised platform, 10 feet high and 80 feet long, decorated with statues, columns, and the prows of ships, called rostra in Latin. On a stage like this, Rome's orators, great and small, tried to draw a crowd and sway public opinion. Picture the backdrop these speakers would have had, a mountain of glorious marble buildings rising right up the Capitol Hill. It was here that Mark Antony rose up to offer Caesar the laurel leaf crown of kingship, which Caesar publicly and hypocritically refused while privately becoming a dictator. Publicly and hypocritically refused while privately becoming a dictator. Men such as Cicero railed against the corruption and decadence that came with the city's newfound wealth. And Cicero paid the price. He was executed and had his head and hands nailed to the rostrum as a public warning. In later years, when emperors ruled, it took real daring to speak out against the powers that be. Rome's democratic spirit was increasingly squelched. Eventually, the emperor and the army, not the Senate and the citizens, held ultimate power, and Rome's vast empire began to rot from within.
Now turn your attention to the big arch to the right of the rostrum.
The the Arch of Septimius Severus. In imperial times, the rostrum's voices of democracy would have been dwarfed by images of empire, such as the huge 6-story high Arch of Septimius Severus. It was built in about the year 200. The reliefs commemorate the African-born emperor's battles in Mesopotamia. Check out the reliefs near ground level. Soldiers march captured barbarians back to Rome for the victory parade. More and more, Rome's economy was based on slave power and foreign booty rather than on domestic production. To review, it grew for 500 years, peaked for 200 years, and then gradually fell for 300 years. The fall had many causes. Christians blamed the fall on moral decay. Pagans blamed it on Christians. Socialists blamed it on a shallow economy based on the spoils of war. Liberals blamed it on the conservatives, and vice versa. And regardless of the problems within, there was always the presence of barbarian tribes on the fringes.
Of Rome's history, we're also nearing the end of our tour. Our final stop is the Temple of Saturn. You can see it from here. It's the 8 big columns just up the slope of Capitol Hill. You could walk to it for a closer look. But if archaeological work blocks the way, you can just view it from here. To help decide, it's worth consulting your guidebook to figure out which of the forum's various exits works best for you. Whatever you decide, our tour concludes with the next track.
The Temple of Saturn and the Column of Focus, Rome's End. These 8 columns framed the entrance to the forum's oldest temple. It dated from about 500 BC. Inside, there was once a humble, very old wooden statue of the god Saturn. The statue's claim to fame was its pedestal, which held the gold bars, coins, and jewels of Rome's state treasury, the booty collected by conquering generals.
That's right.
Standing here at one of the forum's first buildings, look east out over the forum and find a lone tall column that's one of the forum's final monuments. The Column of Focus dates from the year 608. It was a gift from the new dominant empire, Byzantium, to the old fallen empire, Rome. Given to commemorate the pagan pantheon becoming a Christian church, it's like a symbolic last nail in ancient Rome's coffin. After Rome's 1,000-year reign, the once vast empire had shrunk down to little more than the city itself, surrounded by a medieval-style wall. In the year 410, that wall was breached and the city was looted. In 451, the Pope had to personally plead with Attila the Hun for mercy. 1,000 years of tradition was disintegrating. Finally, in 476, the last emperor sold his title for a comfy pension, checked out, and switched off the lights, leaving a political vacuum and plunging Europe into 1,000 years of darkness. Poverty, ignorance, superstition, the Dark Ages. The city of Rome shrank from over 1 million to about 10,000. The once grand city center, the Forum, was abandoned, slowly covered up by centuries of silt and dirt. By medieval times, the Column of Focus could barely pop its head above the ground. In the 1700s, an English historian named Edward Gibbon overlooked this spot from Capitol Hill. Hearing Christian monks singing at these pagan ruins, he looked out at the few columns poking up from the ground, pondered the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and thought, that's a catchy title. I think I'll write a book. But the spirit of Rome has lived on through the centuries, especially in the Christian religion. In the last years of the Roman Empire, Christianity had become the state religion. Senators became bishops, orators became priests, basilicas became churches, and the Roman emperor, the Pontifex Maximus, became the Christian Pope, the Pontifex Maximus. Then around the year 1500, interest in ancient Rome was reborn in the Renaissance. And today, hints of Rome still exist in our everyday world. Our language, laws, literature, art, architecture, and science all have a basis in these enlightened people. The glory of Rome remains eternal. We hope you enjoy.
was nice, but this one have more interesting, more architecture. This sign right here, right? We was down there, right?
Tutti quanti con le mani,
Hello, buongiorno, nice to meet you.
I love just around, beating and blown by the wind. Try to pull you down, and I saw you play. I know we gotta play. The streets of no name, the streets of no name, still building and burning down low. Burning my love, and when I go there with you, it's all I can do.
And like
Imagine no possession. I wonder if you can. Not meant for greed or hunger. But who knows imagine all the people, yeah, sharing for you say you're wrong, you're messy, I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one, yeah I know. I hope someday you'll change.
Now entering Trastevere. You're still hungry?
Yes.
Oh. Well, you're out of luck. One for $3, two for $5.
Don't even know where the that's at.
Holy cow.
Facendo memoria della tutta santa, immacolata, benedetta, gloriosa, Signora nostra, la Madre di Dio e sempre Vergine Maria. Insieme a tutti i santi affidiamo noi stessi, gli uni gli altri e tutta la nostra vita a Cristo Dio. Per la pietà del tuo unigenito Figlio, con il quale sei maledetto assieme al Santissimo, buono e vivificante tuo Spirito e Santo. I have no further obstacles. I have no...
I'm gonna need your background.
I like it over here. Always have.
I always saw that name before, but I didn't. That's really good.
Ah, il corso di
I fenomeni non hanno superato la metà campo.
Careful.
Okay.
Uh-huh. Nice shoes.
Nice short. My bad. Yeah, it's a fake and after
Hello?
Remember we saw that guy. We saw that guy. He said tomorrow. That was the beginning of that part.
Yes.
But that's alright. You don't see it. You're out somewhere. That's why you don't remember. Yes, you always
Мне через постоянно другие. Hamarmeli buranın Susan'dan gelir mi hamarmeli?
Is underground.
Service, bar, restaurant, waiting area.
This is kind of nice, huh? Wow. So this is the second floor of Hauptbahnhof. Antica Focacceria. Nice. I am taking a picture. Come on, don't give me orders.
You act like you don't do it, but you already pretend like, oh.
That's all you do.
No, don't even say that. That's not
Complain.
That's not nice. Don't even say
I don't know.
At least not like.
Oh, shit. Nice.
Vi stod dernede lige før, hvor høj den der ting der i midten den var.
走到半天店啊。就从左面走过来，走到万天店了。
La montaña.
Oh,
We've arrived at Piazza Garibaldi, and he's up on that horse with his back facing the Vatican, Vigo Bassi, and so on.
Esatto, perché prima la facevo io. Prima la facevo io. Esatto. Quello che abbiamo preso lì è
Take the path to your left, which descends between tall trees, and pass the 17th century Villa Aurelia, now part of the American Academy. The fountain is known locally as Fontanone del Giancolo, the big fountain of Giancolo, because of its triumphal arches of ancient Rome. The spot is often frequented by Roman newlyweds and their photographers in search of an appropriate backdrop for their snaps. The fountain was built by order of Pope Paul V in 1608 to showcase the workings of the recently restored aqueduct, originally built by Emperor Trajan. Go down Via Garibaldi until you reach the nearby Chiesa di San Pietro in Montorio. The elegant Renaissance facade with its Gothic rose window, a gate leads into a modest cloister with the adjoining convent in the famous Tempietto di Bramante. So I guess that's here. Oh. Very nice. So a gate to the left as you leave the cloister leads to Via San Pietro in Montorio. A flight of steps lined with the Stations of the Cross, which cuts down to the Via Garibaldi. So behind that gate is where St. Peter was martyred, apparently crucified upside down. Easy people. Seven Stations of the Cross. 5, 6, 7. The elegant Via Corsini on the left. The road runs alongside the 18th century Palazzo Corsini to Rome's Orto Botanico, founded in the 19th century in the former gardens of the palace. The gardens are noted for their collection of Mediterranean succulents and tropical species and are an ideal place for a rest.
That's what you say, right?
That's what they say.
That people don't know lunchtime?
It's lunchtime.
Oh my.
After the big cannonball explosion.
Well, I guess probably traditional here.
The Via della Lungara. Walk the length of the Palazzo Corsini. Opposite is the 16th century Via Farnesina, one of the first examples of a single standing residence surrounded by gardens and featuring frescoes by Raphael and others. Either that one or the one on the other side. Oh, that's lovely. Which I'll bet is this thing here. It's San Giovanni della Malva. Turn right into Via Vendetta, which is maybe up here. Via del Cinque. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Arrivederci,
Bye.
grazie.
Uh-oh. covered in smog or soot. Let's go. No photo. Via Veneto. Hotel Imperiale. Wow, pretty place. Piazza Barberina, and there's the oyster clamshell over there. And the fountain over there. With the bumblebees. Grand Lux Hotel Splendide Royale. They're not understating. Borghese. Oh, that's a pretty place. So this is Via Borghese. Central Park of sorts. Choo-choo. Huh. Well, I guess it's not a carousel. Baby carts. Piccolo slalom. Piccolo slalom. So this is the metro across the street from the park. It looks kind of relatively nice and new, sort of.
What? You good?
Oh, keys, wallet, phone, passport. Everything is good.
The food train at 5:20.
Yes. Is he the driver?
Express 3230 diretto a Fiumicino Aeroporto. Partirà tra poco.
Leonardo Express 3230. Going to
Fiumicino Aeroporto.
will be departing shortly. Persons not intending to leave, please get off now. The train will arrive in
Fiumicino Aeroporto.
at 5:52. Trinidad wishes you a pleasant journey.
Thank you.
Dear passengers, we
Aeroporto.
final destination of this journey.
Invitiamo i gentili passeggeri a tenere a portata di mano il biglietto di viaggio pronto per essere mostrato al personale ferroviario che effettuerà i controlli in uscita dalla stazione.
Fiumicino
Dear
Aeropuerto.
passengers, we invite you to take the train ticket with you, ready to be shown to the railway staff, who will check it at the exit of the station.
Magnifica. Good morning. Okay, security next. I'm going that way, so I'll see you on the other side. I guess you're going here.
Where?
Right there.
You go this way?
I'm going that way, you go that way. So after a rather lengthy discussion with the officious Italians, we're through it. for security. You got everything?
Why do you need that much?
Because you were dilly-dallying.
What?
Dilly-dally. Don't dilly-dally.
For immediate voting.
You're reimbursed for each one of these, Carl. I know
Ja, hier is alweer. Dat is denk ik de eerste
Okay, let's go.
Per via dell'impatto veloce e scorrevole, le passeggeri sopra i sedili devono essere riservate dei bagagli voluminosi. Tutti gli altri effetti personali.
La sistemazione di un trolley o un bagaglio voluminoso, quale secondo to speed up boarding operations, we kindly ask you to leave only one big item or one trolley in the overhead lockers above your seat, and the rest of your belongings, backpacks and smaller bags under the seat in front of you. For anything American.
And as you can see, we have completed all the operations. Anyway, we have about 20 minutes to wait for the start. beyond Italia skating partner right to the boat. You may use a drone device provider set by motor wireless connection turned off. Check the list and negative promote the information. Before your safety, we recommend visible constant. US Sam is switched off and hope it overlooks carefully as it may fall.
All cellular phones. Thank you.
My goodness. Come on, let's go.
Okay. All the way. Thank you very much.
Het Palace.
Thank you. Just like this. Thank you, sir.
It's okay. Next slide. Yes, you can choose.
Hello.
Thank you. Have a nice flight.
Thank you.
Go. Let's fly. Here, that's the room, sir.
Hi.
The boarding car. Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you. $6K. You know, spend a penny. Morning. 6K?
Dave's gonna do it this way.
Thank you. That way. All right. Thank you. You're welcome. Jay. CFG. 6J. Is there a restroom up here?
Yep, they're both up here.
Oh, okay. Oh, around the corner.
One here and there's one right there.
Awesome, thanks.
Cabin luggage is securely stowed under the seat in front of you. Take your seats, fasten your seatbelts.
This afternoon. Should arrive at the gate right about 2:40 local time. Gate today, G like Gulf 4, and latest weather there, fairly calm winds, a little bit of light snow under overcast skies. Current temperatures -7 Celsius, works out to about 18 Fahrenheit. Seatbelt sign is back on. We do ask you to remain seated with your seatbelts fastened for the short duration of our flight today. And once again, we'd like to thank you for flying with us today at Delta Airlines, and ask the flight attendants to please prepare the cabin for arrival. Fastened and carry-on items stowed until the captain has brought the aircraft to the terminal and turned the seatbelt sign off. You are free to use your mobile phones at this time, and we invite you to visit delta.com for all your future travel needs, including checking in for your flight and managing your SkyMiles account.
Before you deplane today, please do check carefully around your seating area, the seat pockets, and the overhead compartments.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Bye now, thank you. Yep, thanks. Thank you. Yep, thank you. Good day.
Oh, you too. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye. So we've arrived in Minneapolis after a 9-hour flight. Perfectly lovely. And sadly my last diamond upgrade, but you'll find a way to do it a different way, I guess. So we're going to F3, I guess. So it appears that Minneapolis has made some major upgrades in this hall. Last time I was here, it was under renovation, so looks like it's done.
In the interest of aviation security.
So that's kind of where we're looking for.
And we'll continue now with our first class and diamond medallion members. First class and diamond medallion.
There it goes. Have a good one.
Hello. I can't do this. Hello.
Thank you so
Thanks.
much.
Bye.
Bye.